Stan, would you please describe to me your first LSD experience?
Well, when LSD first came into my life, I was a student volunteer in my fourth year of medical studies. And at that time, when my preceptor started experimenting with LSD, the students were not allowed to volunteer. So for 2 years, I was actually sitting for a number of people, for artists, for psychologists, psychiatrists, having my appetite constantly whetted by these incredible experiences and also the paintings that some of the painters were bringing from the session. And so just about the first thing I did after I graduated and I qualified, I volunteered in the session. And my preceptor was very interested in electroencephalography. So we had to agree, to have our EEG done before, during, and after. And he was also interested in something called training or driving brain waves, exposing people to very powerful stroboscopic light and finding out if the brain waves in the suboccipital area, which is the visual cortex of the brain, would somehow pick up the frequency that is being fed into them. So I had to also agree to have my brain waves driven at the culmination point of the session. So when I was at that point, after the third hour of the session, a research assistant came and she said it was time for the experiment. She took me to a little room. She pasted the electrodes on my head and asked me to close my eyes. And then she brought this gigantic strobe. She sort of put it above my head and turned this thing on. And in the next moment, my consciousness left my body. It was kind of catapulted out of my body. And I lost first the research assistant, then the clinic, then Prague, and then the planet, actually. And in the process, somewhere I ceased to exist in the way that I knew myself. And I felt completely annihilated. And somehow by becoming nothing, I also became everything. I had the feeling I became all of existence. And then it sort of came as an immense sort of incandescent light, which for me represented all of existence. And I somehow became it. I was part of it. And as this was happening, she was following very carefully the protocol. She put it first on, I think, two frequencies per second, took it out to 60, brought it back, put it for a while in the middle of the alpha range and then the theta range and the delta range, following the protocol, and then turned it off, and then sort of my universe started sort of shrinking again. For a while, I was actually in the physically with the astronomical universe, where a lot of things were happening for which I at the time didn't have even a name. But later I read about the Big Bang and the white holes and the black holes and the wormholes. It was something in that category. And then as she turned it off, I sort of again found the planet, I found the Prague, I found the clinic, found my body. But there was a problem. Somehow my consciousness was circling around the body, and I couldn't get the two together. Didn't know how to align them again. And at that point, it was quite clear that what they taught me at the university was really absurd, was not true. That consciousness is somehow a product of the neurophysiological processes in the brain. I knew at that point that consciousness was a cosmic phenomenon. It was really part of existence that cannot be explained from anything else. It cannot be explained at all. I mean, it just is. And so, at that point, I just made that, was very impressed, and I made that commitment that this will become my life's work. I usually say it's my profession, my vocation, my passion. So now in the 60 years since that experience, I have really done very little that would not be related to what I now call holotropic states of consciousness in one way or another. I had quite a few psychedelic experiences with various substances. I have taken everything that I was giving my patients and my clients more than once. I was also involved in kind of anthropological experimentation, spending time with shamans in North America, in Mexico, in South America. We visited the Ainu shamans, the Lappish shamans. I have participated in native ceremonies with psychedelic plants and without them. I also spent a lot of time with spiritual teachers. Jack Cornfield, the wonderful Vipassana teacher, with Brother David Steiner-Rast, who's a Christian mystic. I spent a lot of time with the Tibetan teachers, with yogis and so on. I worked with dying people, with contact with thanatologists, people who studied near-death experiences. So the common denominator of all these situations is that they involve these holotropic states of consciousness. So it became my soul code. This became my script for this life, something that meant following my bliss, basically.